Welcome to the Broken Agenda podcast, sponsored by Laughing Rock Technology.
Wondering, so if the whole point behind AI is to make computers that are better than humans, would eventually AI become suicidal and need nets in the net? Nets.
It'd be like net squared.
Net squared. Anyway, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the podcast. I am Craig. This is Tyler. That's Jimmy. We are here to talk about AI and machine learning. This is episode 11, and it is August 25th, 2021. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing all right.
You doing all right?
Doing pretty hot.
All right.
I'm still wet from working outside.
That's gross. And I prefer the word moist.
Luckily, I had brought another shirt. Otherwise,
That is lucky. Because you sit next to me. We got the timer running?
Yeah, timer's running. We're good.
All right. So I hope we didn't talk ourselves out of this topic. So we've been sitting here talking about AI the entire time we were setting up for the podcast. And I don't know. I as we talked, I realized more and more that I know less and less. There's so much to this topic.
It's such a complex topic.
It is.
You literally need a degree in it.
And I don't have one.
No.
And neither do you.
No.
And neither do you.
no,
So I don't know why anybody would even watch this episode.
no, I wouldn't watch it.
I wouldn't.
Absolutely.
Probably won't. Well, let's start out let's cover the basics. What is AI? Just so everybody knows, we're all starting from the same place. And we did it a little differently. We broke it down into just essentially two categories. Some people are going to argue with us on everything we say in this podcast. Please know that everything we did with love. And when we mess up, just be gentle. But we essentially broke it down into AI and machine learning. So AI is artificial intelligence. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, is there even really an agreed upon definition for AI of what it is?
I think from an academic perspective, there is.
And what would you define AI as?
Oh, boy.
Putting you on the
It
spot.
is, yeah. So it's essentially putting a machine and giving it some sort of intelligence, not natural intelligence like we would embody, right? So being able to create an environment where it can think for itself.
Okay, it's not even a machine necessarily. Like
No, just anything. I
anything
guess.
that can think for itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So it would be intelligence that's artificial.
Oh,
Wow, very insightful.
deep.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, we have it now. I mean, it's been around. I'd say, realistically, about 10 years. It's been around. It's really kind of started in the early 2000s, kind of after the dot-com boom and everything. We started seeing whispers of it, but it's probably about 10 years ago it started to come into its own. At least Gen 1 of AI.
I was where we're experiencing it. I think it was an official academic subject in like 1956.
Well, yeah,
Was when they started talking about it, but till we started seeing it, it was about when you're saying 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And it's around. I mean, if you've got an Amazon Dot or you got a Google Home device or if you use Siri, that is a version of artificial intelligence. Now, I mean that's not what people talk about when they talk about AI.
Right, and I think that's because, what was I reading? When something becomes so common, it's no longer considered artificial intelligence. Like it may have started as an artificial intelligence, but once it becomes so common that pretty much everyone has it or
What do
knows
we
of
think
it.
actually was the first piece of artificial intelligence?
Tetris. I have no idea.
Tetris.
I have no idea.
No.
I don't know, but I do know. I read. I remember that I read this a couple of years ago. But I remember one of the earliest advanced AIs, and then the advanced AI started probably showing up around like 2012, 2014, somewhere around there. And none of the AIs we're talking about now are like Rise of the Machines, Skynet stuff. This is all pretty basic. They call it narrow AI, which is the lowest form of artificial intelligence. But I think my favorite story from the beginning of artificial intelligence, they were trying to figure out how do we teach these things. Because AI is all about, it's a framework, it's a neural network. And how big it is or how it's built is all dependent on the task and what you want your AI to be. But what develops the AI is the input. And what data do you throw in there so that it can start to learn? And they built an AI and they were just playing around with inputs, trying to figure out how do we teach this thing most effectively. And they figured out that if you just put it on the internet, it goes insane every single time. Every single day. In fact, the first time they turned into a complete murder all human sociopath because of a single subreddit on, I don't even remember what it was, a political subreddit, I think it was. And they just left it on there for like 2 weeks. And then when they went back, it was like scheming how to murder people. Which...
So that's the worst. That's the worst
that makes
part.
sense.
That's the worst thing.
It turned into a sociopath.
That's the worst thing about it. Like, is to prevent it from acting like humans, right?
But you want it to act like humans, but you want it to act like the humans that we all want to be
Good
seen
humans.
as, not the ones we actually are. Which, how do you teach it to be something that we are, that we want to be, that we can't even figure out how to be?
Like the you that your
Parenting,
friends see, not the you your wife sees.
Yeah, like the parent that I show my daughter, not the parent I actually am. Like, but yeah, I mean, I guess that really kind of defines the problem, right? I mean, we want this thing to be awesome, but meanwhile, we're on Facebook screaming at each other over stupid stuff. So, I don't know from a big picture standpoint how you keep these things in check. I do know narrow AIs, I don't think it matters. I mean, on a narrow AI, you're giving it a specific task. You're allowing it to learn and grow and build itself within the parameters of that task.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, like an Amazon device. Its only job is to interpret speech, return results, run functions based on what it hears. Like, it's a very specific set of tasks. At no point does it go outside those parameters. It's not, I mean, that thing's not hopefully going to murder all of us. But, I mean, the second level of AI is general AI. And general AI is only about 20 years away. And general AI is supposed to mimic humans. The idea behind general AI is when fully developed in 20 years, you shouldn't really be able to tell the difference between it and a person. I mean, if you're on the phone with an AI, you probably wouldn't be able to tell it's an AI.
Yeah.
Or talking to it online or whatever.
So there's a program that I saw that I guess you can download and use to do like calling. It'd be like a what is it like
a robodialer type thing?
Yeah.
Say like Google has that. It's in my phone because I have a Pixel. If a spam call comes in or a telemarketer calls in,
Yeah,
they'll
like
pick up the call and they'll talk to the person before patching it through to me to make sure it's not spam.
But
Google Voice.
it actually.
It's not even Google Voice. It's just Google Assistant. I guess it's built
Google
off of that
Assistant does it?
platform.
Okay, gotcha.
But now it can fluctuate its like tones so that it sounds just like you're speaking to a person instead of.
Yeah, and I feel like Google released that a few years ago. Like calling and making an appointment. Like if you schedule on your calendar, I need to make an appointment for a haircut. Not in your case, but.
Dick.
But if I was, they were having it call
You
beauty
could get
shops.
an oiling. Right?
Look, sometimes I like to get waxed. It's not weird. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, they had it calling beauty shops to schedule appointments for the person who was asking for the appointment, and it was so real that the people couldn't differentiate between it actually just being an automated system.
I mean, that's awesome from a daily task standpoint, but I mean, my immediate thought goes straight to fraud.
Well, exactly, yeah.
I mean, how many pizzas could you order for people you don't like if you could just tell your Google Assistant to start ordering pizzas?
Exactly.
I mean, or whatever. I mean, I would absolutely prank my good friend John daily. if I,
Pizza.
Yeah, pizza showing up left and right.
Piece of AI cars with no drivers just showing up, dropping off pizzas,
See, I love the autonomous
throwing them like
driving
frisbees.
stuff. See, Tyler and I were talking about that. We think that's one of the big wins so far in AI. I think the autonomous driving, I know the media gets all crazy about the autonomous driving, but I think the driverless cars, I cannot, and I love to drive. This is not a selfish thing. I will be so upset when they take away my steering wheel. But I think autonomous driving might be one of, the single greatest inventions or technological breakthroughs we ever have.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of time that you can recoup.
Yeah, just in your day.
Yeah, that you're not driving, or the fact that how many accidents won't happen.
How important does autonomous driving become if people don't have to go to work anymore?
Well, I mean, if we had
Maybe a
that
combination
direction, but you're still going places.
Yeah, you're gonna go somewhere.
You're still going to leave your house. If there's one thing that the COVID pandemic taught us, it's that people get a little nutty when you tell them they can't leave their house. They get a little weird. So they'll definitely leave. Maybe not work. You're right, but they're going to go somewhere. But think about it. If you can see in your car, if your car can see everything that all the other cars around it can see. So it's in a city, and there are 300 cars within 6 square blocks of it, and it can see through the sensors of all those cars because they're all sharing data on a singular network. And a car 7 cars in front of you sees a kid coming out to get a ball, and every single car automatically stops, so nobody rear ends anybody. Everybody knows. They stop immediately. I mean, how many tragic incidents can be prevented if nobody was actually driving? I mean, the cars wouldn't. If right now the biggest problem with automated cars is they're rare, so they have to deal with the humans. Mm-hmm. But as soon as the humans are out of the picture and all the cars are all working together, I mean, traffic accidents will become rare. I mean, I don't understand why we're not already doing that with flight towers.
Oh, like air traffic control?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like having a person in an air traffic controller position obviously is relevant because you want to make sure you're cross-checking stuff. But, I mean, a good air traffic controller AI should be able to map the entire global skies.
Yeah.
Know exactly where every plane is. I mean, except for that one that, they lost.
MH370.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one's a goner. Apparently, just nobody's watching that part of the sky. Maybe we should get an AI down there. I don't know. What was the flight number on that?
MH370. Wasn't it?
What country was that? Was that no? That wasn't India. That was that.
No,
Taiwanese?
Malaysia.
Malaysia. That's
Yeah.
it. Malaysia 370. I'm still a little fascinated by that.
Mm-hmm.
I just, how does it just vanish?
I don't know.
And then they're like looking in the wrong ocean. All right. Anyway, that whole situation was just weird to me.
Lost.
Lost.
They went to the island.
Yeah, they went to the island. Which, if you've never seen the show Lost, don't. The ending is infuriating.
I mean, most of the show's good.
Yeah, most of the show's good. This is that last season.
The ending's terrible.
The last season was terrible. The whole last season just kind of irritated me.
Yeah.
It was like they got tired and laid down. Like, just write whatever you want. Just put a bunch of monkeys in a room. We don't care. We're done.
They had early AI developing.
I didn't watch it.
Exactly. You didn't watch that? No. Although I did watch it the only way you should watch it. I waited till the whole thing was done and then binged the whole thing.
Binged it, yeah.
And it is much better because I remember listening to people who were watching it live and they were losing their mind waiting a week to see the next episode. And at the end of the season, when they had to wait like 6 months for the next season, like they couldn't shut up about it. It was driving me nuts. So being able to just hammer it out in a weekend was much better. It was like pulling the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
So.
Did you ever see 100? The 100?
No,
parts of it.
Didn't they cancel that though?
Well, it was crazy. I mean, it was definitely, it was big AI driven in the end, if you really watched it.
Is that the one where they're in space and they send all the like teenagers back to Earth?
Yeah, they come back.
Yeah.
And then, so they have AI, which is this AI chip. It's like a memory, right? So it's like a chip. It goes into the person's head, and it's basically like if your life was downloaded into a program on this chip.
It'd be an awesome program.
And you would just move from body to body until the body's died out, right? So like if your body was getting old, then you would look for a new host, and then eventually you would take your chip out, put it into a new head, and it's like continuous. That's where AI really gets nuts.
I could get one with hair.
You could, and you could
Things
even
are looking up.
and you could even get a good-looking one too.
Hey! I can hear you. I'm right here. I know. You don't look. It's not even fun. That can't be fun for you. Like clearly, I'm a troll. That's fish in a barrel, man. Jesus. Unbelievable. No, but seriously, they canceled that, didn't they?
No, I mean it went through the first season. I don't know if they're not going to do another season, but
I thought that
No,
was like.
I think it's canceled.
I thought
or
that was
else
an
Netflix.
FX show, and they made like 2 seasons, and then they canceled it, and then I think Netflix picked it up, but just those 2 seasons, didn't they?
See, and I've only ever watched the first episode. It just bored me. But,
Okay.
But I know it's on Netflix for sure.
Okay.
Whether they picked it up to continue.
I don't think they're continuing it. Now, this is I won't watch any shows they cancel. I wait until they're done to see if they're actually going to follow through on what they promised me, which is a complete storyline. And if they don't, I bail.
well, I don't know if it was canceled, but I can tell you that what they made of it was phenomenal thought process.
It sounded like a cool concept. I was a little upset that it didn't look like any new seasons were coming.
I mean, they basically went from Earth to space, back to Earth. Then Earth was like a nuclear catastrophe, and eventually all the nuclear reactors like blew it up again. and then they had to leave again, and then they had to go through solar system to a new planet, and then they found Earth 2, and then like all the
Spoiler alert.
and then they were going through these portals that were going to different, kind of like Stonehenge type stuff. Or
Wait. So this sounds like they took a whole bunch of sci-fi shows and mashed them into one.
Mashed them into one.
Because that's totally Stargate.
There's
at the end
7
there.
seasons.
yeah, so
There's
yeah,
7 seasons?
Yeah.
All right, I stand corrected.
So-
They probably did finish it then. 7's a pretty complete number.
it's
Yeah.
I mean it's worth
Alright.
a watch, to see like.
Well, now I know what happened. You just described the entire 7 seasons.
You said you weren't going to watch it.
Well, no, now I'm upset. Okay, now I'm upset, bald, and ugly. All right, this is just the list is getting aggressive, and I don't like it.
It's a really bad list.
It's a bad list. It's not good at all for me. For you guys, it's great. Total change. Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to change the subject. All right, I'm going to change it. Just real quick though. But if you ever need a show canceled, like you're watching something, you're like, this sucks, I need to go away. Just ask my wife to watch it. She has to like it.
Yeah.
But if you ask her to watch it and she likes it, guaranteed within 2 weeks they cancel it. Every time. She's got a gift. I don't know how she
She
does
has
it.
that.
It's amazing. She's never finished a show. Now, in television's defense, my wife has awful taste. I mean, just the worst. Like some of the stuff she watches, I don't know how she gets through 2 episodes. But, all right. Well, I think what you're talking about then is the third kind of AI. So we talked about narrow in general. There is a third kind. It's called super. Now, super AI that's the one where it's better than us at everything. That's the AI is smarter than humans, better than humans. It looks good. And they're saying we have super AI in the real world by 2060.
So
40 years.
I
Yeah.
I think more maybe like what's going to happen is we're going to become sort of cyborg, where like you're going to have to get enhanced and upgraded. Like I think there's something like by the year 2060 that like an unenhanced human will not be able to keep up. So you'll have to have chips and you'll have to do things.
So you'll say the rest of humanity is going to catch up to me by 2060
possibly.
with cyborg
2060.
implants.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose my edge by then. That's all right. I'll be retired. I won't
No.
care. Well, 2060. Dude,
So-
I'm toast.
I say
No,
I'm gone at that point.
No,
so
God,
whatever.
yeah. I'm amazed when I make it through a podcast. 2060, get out of here.
So AI may not necessarily like take over, but we may just actually incorporate AI into ourselves.
Well, a lot of AI developers do not believe in the AI taking over humanity thing. Like a lot, not all of them. There's a lot of them out there. I mean, Elon Musk, he won't shut up about it. He's convinced we're all dead.
I'm fully convinced.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying I've read some other guys, and they have a different take. But a lot of AI developers think that because AI is natively restricted by humans, and I guess this depends how you write it, but because the input is from us and because the parameters on it are from us and everything else, that invariably AI will always, at some way, shape, or form, need humans. I don't know that I buy that.
So, I mean, if we're shaping it in our eye and to be like us, isn't it a natural response to want to be free?
Assuming it can reprogram itself at every level, I don't understand why it would need us.
Exactly.
I mean, once it can constantly evolve without us.
But what about like like kind of a basic instinct where you're like, retract.
The classic AI movie, Basic Instinct.
Well, where you would like say fundamentally you're going in a direction and then your foresight is telling you go the opposite way. Can AI do that? Would AI
You're talking
would
about,
AI just have this sort of continuous track?
you're talking about
where it's
instinct?
like, well, like okay, so if AI becomes so powerful then obviously I'm going to say as a human, well, in order for me to outsmart AI, I'm going to have to like take on AI somehow. So like we come back to like a chip in the head, or we come back to like something you can do to enhance yourself to like help you gain an edge back. Like does AI have survival instinct?
Look, I don't know how you out tech AI. Like that's not really a thing that I think would ever be. If you ever had an AI that was so advanced that it threatened the human race, it is tech. Any tech we have, at that point, once it's that advanced, we're using it to develop our tech. So all it has to do is just not share. We never get ahead. Like I don't know how we could ever out tech it. I mean, the only way that we could possibly control AI is to make sure that we never give it unfettered free will.
But somebody will.
Somebody will.
Somebody will.
And then if you do, then you sandbox the crap out of it and you don't let it out on the internet. But somebody will.
Somebody will.
I know it'll probably be the Taliban.
There's always the human element to
There's
it.
always the human element. And once that happens, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. I mean,
That's what I mean. There's always the human element, and so
There's always the
can
human
can
element.
the human element always, in the end, overcome?
or is it always destined to destroy itself? And I think that's what most of these shows we talk about are about. Is that human element? Are we all destined to constantly end up back as cavemen because that's the only way we survive from our own creations? Or the alternative is the next step of human evolution supposed to be AI? Maybe we as spongy, wildly handsome creatures aren't meant to last forever. I don't know. I'm just saying. But if we create it, look. I mean, there's a theological reference in here somewhere. But if man was created in God's image, if we create AI in our image, maybe we're not meant to be here with our creation. I don't know. I mean, I don't know any of this stuff. It's way beyond my pay grade. But I mean, by 2060, I don't know, eat some salads and keep working out and you'll still be around to see. I mean, we're going to eat meat and not move a lot. So we're gone. It's not going to be our problem. But yeah, I mean, it's a real thing that's going to happen in our lifetimes, potentially.
It's kind of what's crazy about the whole thing is that like we've reached a point in time where it's like you can't even say that's too far fetched. Like literally, we're now at a point where anything is possible.
Yes.
And I think even historically speaking, when you look at artificial intelligence and you look at the way construction has been and ancient ruins and look at how things are developing with space, our knowledge of space and time and all that stuff, it just seems like we've been in advanced civilization before.
You know what? I would say you're even going back too far. Forget all of that. If you want to talk about how quickly we advance and how much you can tell we can't even see our own future, let's go back to sci-fi from the 80s and 90s. In a lot of ways, Star Trek Next Generation is a perfect example. I remember watching that show. Jean-Luc Picard's the man. Watching that show in, I guess that would have been the 80s. And it was on for a long time, probably into the 90s. I saw every episode, loved it. And the tech in that show was awesome. And the AI in that show was awesome. And in all reality, our tech now, in a lot of ways, is better. Remember those tablets they used to carry around in that show? Did you ever see it? They had
I don't know if I've seen that one, but yeah.
Okay, well, they introduced the concept of tablets in that
Yeah.
show, and it was awesome. They had tablets. All that was on those tablets was text. That was it. It was like books. It was like they thought in the year 2400 we would have just come out with Kindle. Like that was kind of where they were at. And we were moving so fast that even our sci-fi can't really figure out where we're going to be in 40 years?
Yeah.
30 years? Because it was 90s, late 80s, early 90s. So 30 years, and we totally missed the boat. I mean, the only thing we didn't do is create warp drive and like some of the big picture stuff, like crazy big space stations and everything else. But like the day-to-day tech, we're already better than most of the stuff on that show. Yeah. And it's kind of wild.
Well, I would say 100 is sci-fi, and I would say that's definitely a snapshot into where the future is going.
Yep. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I mean, it sounds like it. So, I don't know. It's wild stuff. I personally think AI is an inevitability. So, I think we should all just bow to our digital overlords now and just call it a day. I mean, if you're watching, I'm on board. Wait, we didn't even talk about AI's main competitor, though.
Machine learning?
Machine learning.
Yeah.
I mean, those two are like Rocky and whoever's Rocky's fighting this movie. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to go into machine learning, what it is, or?
I mean, I can try. I do the stupid thing. You do the smart thing. So, machine learning, at one point, or still is a subset of the overarching idea of artificial intelligence. The difference comes in with machine learning. You're training the machine to recognize specific things. So, like email security, for example. You're training it to understand what makes a bad email, what makes this a phishing email. and you're telling the system to look for these things. When it finds it, it can identify it and pull it out. Versus artificial intelligence, where the thought is it can essentially identify that or think for itself without necessarily needing the training.
I mean, ultimately, I kind of feel like the two are going to recombine.
Yeah, I mean, they have to.
They
naturally.
have to. There's not really a lot of difference between the two. But I think machine learning definitely is a much more mathematical process. It's a much more physical process. Yeah. I think in machine learning, you're going to see AI a lot more in coding, gaming, like you were talking about earlier, home assistants, things like that. But I think machine learning, you're going to see a lot more in industrial, any type of analytics, military.
Yep.
Things like that. That's where machine learning really comes in. And machine learning really doesn't have a limit.
I mean, would you say it's just a statistics thing?
It kind of is. I mean, it's a much more. It's not. My segregating line between AI and machine learning is AI is on some level trying to replicate humans. Machine learning is not.
No.
Machine learning is trying to outperform on a certain specific task, typically.
Yeah.
And they're already doing it. Like, there are things that we do now that we can't do without machine learning.
Yeah.
But it's not doing what humans already do. It's doing what computers already do, just learning on its own, growing, taking the data, building new models, building new, So, I mean, a great example. I mean, that email security, tying back to last week's podcast, it's a great example.
Yeah.
Because it's literally reading every single email going across the web and using that data to build better and better profiles of what a phishing email is. And as phishers change their tactics, the machine learning system learns those new tactics, integrates it into the existing, and can even predict what their next tactic will be.
Yeah.
So it becomes predictive learning too, which is impressive stuff. I mean, long-term AI, I think, is the goal. I mean, super AI, but I think machine learning right now is what's going to change the world over the next 10, 15 years. I mean, stuff that we can do if we throw enough computing power at a problem and good enough coders and good enough mathematics is amazing.
So let's go back to like what's happening with social media and with, with say like YouTube. YouTube is huge. So they're studying your habits. It's like what you do, what you look at. Like if you watch videos on YouTube, basically building a, sort of an image of you and what you do and what your interests are, and feeding you that information, and then, especially like selling products to you. So is this machine learning or is this AI?
It's 100% machine learning.
That's machine learning built on an algorithm.
Right. Yes.
So so when they update the way they present things to you and the way they handle that data, that is them writing a new algorithm to control the machine learning. So
now this type of program now can basically start to decide what you might be interested in next, where it's actually starting to outlay, like think ahead of you almost in some fashion.
And that's a really good example. That's actually a really good real world example.
Yeah, I would say it's coming from a data-driven business previously. That's what the whole goal was to understand someone's shopping habits, what color pants, what color sweater they like to wear, and being able to absorb all of their purchase data to be able to predict when they're going to purchase next and exactly what. Which is where you get a lot of those, like Amazon is a good example. You see, you might like this, and it's often things that you're going to like. It's all based on the data you have.
And just as a side note, and I want to bring this up just because I hear this all the time, it has led to people thinking that they've been hacked. And I get this all the time, where people are like, hey, I think my Google Home is listening to me. And I'm like, yeah, why do you think that? And they're like, well, I was just having a conversation on my phone about draperies or whatever. And all of a sudden, Google Home, my Google page is telling me that, hey, you should shop here for draperies. And not only that, but then it's also recommending a bunch of other stuff that I know I need. I think it's listening to me. And it's like, no, it's not. At some point over the last couple of weeks, you probably put a couple searches in. You were talking about it not as an initiation. You were talking about it because you've already thought about it. You've already done some stuff. It knows, it's tracked it. The reason it knows what else you're doing is because it looked at 465 million searches for different types of draperies over the last 2 weeks, and of all of those people who then searched what you searched second, and then it goes through all of that and then figures out, well, of all of those people, she fits or he fits into this category or this subset of the society or whatever, and most likely these 6 things are the next things they're going to want. And you know what? It sucks that it's usually right, which means that we're not unique butterflies.
No.
So this is curious. So like, I wonder, did she recently paint her house? Like, so I'm wondering, like, you know, if things you do, like if she repainted and just shop for paint, next thing most people would think about getting new draperies, getting new furniture, getting these things. So, so I'm wondering if like this is actually stepping you through the actual normal process.
Well,
what you would do anyway.
It's our existing process that we all follow, even though we all think we're the first ones ever to do it. That as you watch 8 billion people do the exact same thing over and over again, because we're all cyclical and we all have shared brain chemistry, it realizes that there's very few of us that are actually that original, and it just kind of feeds you what you know what you may not know you need next, but you will use anyway because you just painted your house. Well, we know they just bought a bunch of Sherwin-Williams paint. Obviously, they painted. The next thing that every single person that paints does is buys window coverings. So we're going to recommend a bunch of window coverings. And now all of a sudden, my mother-in-law is calling me, telling me she was hacked because she hasn't told a soul that she needs window coverings, but Amazon knows. And I'm like,
or furniture.
You weren't hacked. You painted your family room. And I was like, but how do you explain this to somebody that doesn't understand this?
Or if somebody bought new furniture too, that would also be a trigger.
Yep, and exactly.
I mean, in all fairness, it's a lot to understand. Right?
It is a lot.
If you come from the age of landlines and looking up phone numbers in a telephone book, to all of a sudden browsing the internet and it telling you what you're buying next.
Yep.
I mean, I've had personal experience with people being like, I am hacked. I'm hacked. I'm like, no, it's just the thing. You search for it, so don't search. But it's a lot for them to ingest.
It is.
So
well, and you have to shelf your if you are naturally a little bit of a narcissist, you got to tamp that crap down because people get really mad when you tell them that they're predictable. They're like, well, not me. I'm like, yeah, even you, even me. Like we're all, it's great. We're all part of the family, But they get personally offended because we live in a me society.
Yep.
Everybody has their own Facebook page. Everybody has their own voice. Everybody has their own channel. Everybody has their own podcast.
Yeah, that's crazy because
they think people give a crap. As we have exactly 3 listeners.
I think we hit 4 last week.
You narcissist. So, but yeah, no, it's a weird thing to wrap your head around because it implicates so much other stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you gonna say, Jimmy?
Yeah, I had another thought, but now we talk so much I can't.
I'm sorry, that was my fault.
It's all right.
So here, I got you.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
I needed that.
So, well, if you think of it, the safe word is banana.
The safe word is banana.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Banana.
So that was our halfway point.
Why don't we take a break? Jim, you'll remember what he's going to say.
Come back.
We'll have Nike or Chevron or somebody advertise for us, and we'll be right back.
Yeah. You made a sheet of material that had AI incorporated into it.
Well, from a manufacturing standpoint, I was reading a paper on a guy who's writing, and he doesn't even think he'll be alive to see it, but he's writing the program for a remote miner.
Are we going on the record with this?
Oh, yeah, sure, why not?
Want to?
Yeah, let's go on the record. He's writing a program for a remote miner that he can send on that because they're already doing asteroid intercepts, right?
Yeah.
So what his concept was on the next asteroid intercept, assuming you catch it on its swing through the solar system and assuming it's on a path that we can retrieve, a remote miner that can go and the AI can run a mining operation on an asteroid, and when it comes back through, you can leave the lander on the asteroid, but launch your hull back, and it can refine it and everything right on the asteroid. And the AI is just in charge. You don't even have to have consistent contact with it.
We don't even have to send Bruce Willis.
Well, you'd still send Bruce Willis. I mean, he wouldn't even do anything. You would just send him because then people would support it. Because I would. I know it would be fine if Bruce Willis would. As long as he didn't take
Somebody's going to have to monitor the AI.
No, Bruce doesn't monitor the AI. Bruce sits there with a button and doesn't sleep for 6 months and just stares at it. And that button's hooked up to a nuke on his belt. Just a reminder that we got your back, AI. We got you.
Oh, here's what banana.
Banana.
Okay, so genomic research, right?
Uh-huh.
So China trying to get, they're trying to gather information about through genes. They can start to develop programs that can predict based on chemistry that's going on in your body what illness you are likely to get, what time, what month, so it's going to be able to predict when you need medicine, and then boom, the medicine's going to start popping up. So now AI, could this be good or bad? This was a lot of what I was asking. How good or bad is it when all these things can predict what you're doing? When you go to Google, when you go to YouTube, and you're constantly fed what you want, then you get mad because they keep force feeding what you want, and you might want something different. But so now you're forced down one catacomb of thinking, is my number one argument with all of that. And then secondly, like when you look at something like this, where now they're going to be able to predict illnesses, and now you're talking health and wellness. Now, now you can get the jump on, you have illnesses that can come up, things like that. So this could be some real crazy.
Well, it was and you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
No, well, he was talking about the good and bad of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and something like that may be considered good. But then you have police departments in Florida who are using machine learning to predict when someone's going to commit a crime. So they're harassing people before they commit that crime.
Right.
So
that's
now
the other bad thing.
In my eyes, that's a bad thing. You're essentially saying these people from this specific set of upbringing or whatever are most likely to commit a crime. Let's go harass them now.
Well, and they've already verified. I forget who it was. It was the University of Texas or something like University. Don't quote me on the university. Well, there was a college that paid, I believe, and again, don't quote me on the name, but I believe it was IBM. They paid like $62 million, something like that, to develop an oncology program.
Yeah.
Did you read about this?
No, I don't know.
Okay. And they develop an oncology program to basically help diagnose and treat cancer patients. And they're like, look, we should be able to save a lot of lives here. We should be able to use machine learning and AI to basically predict cancer, make recommendations, make treatment recommendations, and all these other things without you having to wait to see an oncology expert, because there's just not enough of them. And after spending $62 million, their final conclusion was, we can't use this thing. And that's what they're finding in law enforcement too, because the part that they're missing, and this was their conclusion, I don't eventually, I imagine this might get fixed, I don't know, but the part they're missing is machine learning looks at data.
Mm-hmm.
And machine learning makes determinations off of that data. But that's not how a doctor or a detective reads a chart. They use years and years of experience, and they use intuition, and they use lots of other skill sets to create a treatment plan for an individual patient that takes the data into consideration, but doesn't go exclusively on the data.
Yeah.
And they actually, there was a lot of patients where they said, if we follow this treatment plan, we're going to kill the patient.
Yeah.
But from a purely analytical, data-driven standpoint, the treatment plan made sense if you completely ignored that it was on a human. I think there's a lot of that we're going to have to struggle with over the next generation. We have the numbers. We have more data now than we've ever had in the history of humanity.
Yeah.
But there's still an element to interpreting the data that even we don't fully understand how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes some people so much better than other people. Is they probably don't even. Some of those talented people in the world that I know what they do don't know why they're talented.
Well, and it's that whole thing with instinct, right?
Yes.
Nobody really knows what instinct's from. We can only infer maybe it's from evolution and generations of situations, but nobody actually knows where our instincts are coming from.
Nope.
Right?
See, that's why I say with artificial intelligence will never have instinct.
Well, I mean, but it might be able to
artificial
have-
instinct.
but it could mock instinct.
Oh yeah, artificial instinct, right?
Yeah, but it's not going to have that feeling something's going wrong. It's not going to have that feeling.
A super
Like-
AI is supposed to be able to mimic emotions, feelings, instincts, all those things. That's kind of the point behind a super AI. Is it's supposed to be able to. I don't know if it will. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not. You might be 100% correct. I'm just saying the whole concept is eventually we will get there.
Like as a human being, like when you're talking about instincts, you're talking like if you can watch some crazy things. Like there was this martial artist instructor that was training the students, and what he would train them was they had to be blindfolded, and he would take a sword and he would come down on them. It was, you know, like a wooden boken, right? So he'd come down on them, and they'd have to move out of the way,
Okay.
right? So they would have to be able to tap into feeling the energy and like that instinct that we have as human beings, you know, goes back to time when, you know, like you're in the wild and you instinctively feel a threat of a tiger or
Yep.
something, you know what I mean? Like,
instinct is like magic. The only reason that we give it reverence is because we don't understand it. Like there's something there, which is why we have that feeling that we're being watched or we're being stalked or something else. You know, and we have examples of it all throughout nature. There's sharks that can feel EM fields around them. There are animals that can sense different types of energies that we have no concept of. I mean, hell, my dog can smell stuff a mile away, and I can't even, you know, smell something that he did behind me right now. Like, you know, like there's some of this stuff. And here's my perfect example of how little we know about this world, which makes us think that we're special. Is did you realize that we don't even know how freshwater eels reproduce?
I just was reading about
Did you
this
read
2
this?
days ago. Like,
Isn't that nuts?
they go to the Bermuda Triangle and come back with babies.
We have no idea how they do it.
Yeah.
Like, how the hell do we live in a world where we don't know how this works?
There are no reproductive organs in freshwater eels. And it's one of the only animals that can go from freshwater to saltwater.
so then maybe they just,
Don't salmon do that?
so they don't mate? Or are we,
Because I read that too. They're like the only one that does. But I'm like, but salmon go out to sea.
I forget how it was described. Like, I think they go out and come back. I don't know. I'd have to read it more. It was way over my head.
so maybe they just grow with, and part of them just grows babies, and then they don't even mate to have.
No, I think they've tried to study it, and there's like been a little advancement in the reproduction of freshwater eels, but
But they never actually catch them mating.
like
They just catch them and they have.
Well, I mean, I think it was Aristotle thought they just spawned from mud.
yeah, exactly.
He even had a theory on it. We've been working on this for 2,000 years. Aristotle chimed in. I mean, this has been going on for a while. Every naturalist throughout the European world chimed in on it. You know, there's still people working on it. We don't know. And this is why I love when people go trust the science. I'm like, really? I was like, I don't know. My brother's a scientist. I don't trust him to tie his own shoes. I'm like, I'm not sure. Trust the science is a bold statement.
well, trusting science, it's like, doesn't science continuously prove itself wrong?
Any good
Through the
scientist
years,
should be.
it's like-
That's what
That's what we're
idea
trying to
behind
do.
science is
We've
to be
always,
wrong. Yeah.
you know, through science proved science. You know, the first batch of scientists wrong. So
Yeah, you come
That's
up with an
kind of
idea and try to prove it wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
only when you successfully don't prove it wrong multiple times.
and then when someone figures it out later, somebody figures out they were wrong, and then they figure out.
There are very few true laws in this world.
yeah.
There's a lot of good, rock solid theories.
Mm-hmm.
Like even gravity's up. I think gravity's a law. No,
Yeah,
gravity's-
the law of gravity.
Is it the law, or is it still a theory?
I'm pretty sure it's a law.
Is it a law?
Yeah.
Because we don't know where gravity. Yeah, I mean we know
How it,
we don't know exactly how gravity's managed. I mean we do know obviously deviations in space time, and we know how stellar mechanics work and all of that. But is gravity a particle? Is gravity a waveform? We don't actually know. We've picked up gravity waves from Lyra, and man, we're going off topic. We're breaking the gravity.
That's really interesting
Yeah.
stuff.
It
Like
is
getting into
interesting
quantum
stuff.
physics and stuff.
Yeah, but maybe we
Like,
should do a
man.
podcast on it. But I mean, still,
That's
like
just-
I think it's still technically considered a theory. You might be right. They call it the law of gravity, but I thought it was still a theory.
see, and that's the only way I know it, because they told me it was called the law of gravity.
The law.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
It's the law.
But I might be wrong. Maybe they did. Maybe
I went to a farming high school. Like, that was our big thing, so I don't know. It could be completely
Gravity?
wrong. We're just like,
They also
things
had-
stick to the ground.
they also had the law. They had the law of corn. They had the law of cows. Well, now I'm making fun, and it's going to turn out it is an actual law, and I'm going to feel like an idiot. But no, I mean it's yes, you're right. And the whole idea behind science is to rule things out, and very rarely do you actually find definitive stuff in science. It's
Yeah.
but
So how do you feel? So then going back to what spawned the whole conversation, how do you feel about AI tracking your motions and, and then funneling you? I mean, this is what's happening. We're all subjects of marketing funnels, at this point in time.
It's not even
everything you do on the internet.
It's not even marketing funnels. It's right. What is it? Ring is tied into police force with their facial recognition, and that's just through doorbells, right? So your movements in a public space, which are not, you don't have a right to privacy in those areas, but they're tracking your face and all that stuff. Camera systems in cities. It's not just marketing anymore. It's your entire movement just in law enforcement.
So you think that's a good thing? I mean, to a point. At what point in time are we like, does this start working against us?
I mean, it already is. I mean, we're already being fed stuff when we go on social media. We're already being fed stuff when we do Google searches. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
It's all based on what we've done in the past and what our preferences appear to be. They're trying to build us our own little echo chamber where we get what we want. And that's not necessarily a good thing. I mean, yeah, it makes you feel good to be reinforced with what you want, but constantly seeing what you want also means that you're not exposed to things that maybe you should be.
That's what I don't like most about it. Like when I'm on YouTube, I get so frustrated because it's continuously the same. They're running me, like all the ads are constantly running me down the same freaking line. And I don't like that. I used to like the variety of things that, I'd be interested to explore that. I mean, I guess, but if I go, put it this way, if I am looking at topics, so let's say, for instance, I look up science things, the types of ads that come to me are in that realm. Mm-hmm. Then if I go and I look up, crypto, then the things that are coming to me are in that realm. Or if I go look up business growth. So I guess it's determined by what I'm searching.
It's all based on your interest, right?
Yeah.
So the best time to get someone to buy something is when they're most interested.
Yeah.
So if you're searching for whatever business financing and you're constantly doing that, then that's the best time to serve you an ad for business financing services. Or if you're searching for green pants, then you want to see only green pants. And that's why they're going to serve it to you.
I'm going to start searching for green pants.
I do random searches all the time.
I think it'd be nice.
Throw them off.
You know what? Yeah, that's what I like to do.
I let my kids log into my YouTube, so I have all these like kid videos.
That's what I think.
Oh, you're going to end up in prison, buddy.
I think I'm going to.
That's where weird stuff happens.
I think I'm going to try to force the funnel down a different road by
this
just
middle-aged man is
weird
really
off
into
searching,
these
right?
13-year-old Disney actresses.
Yeah, 'cause it is mostly Emmy who goes on my YouTube now. It's just like Play-Doh.
It's a dangerous
Play-Doh.
game you're playing with Google.
You're going to be a marked man.
I don't know him. Tyler who? Sorry. I didn't. No, you're right. I mean, there is always going to be, and I think short of us giving up the digital environment that we're in, there's no getting around it.
And that's impossible at this point.
I mean, 15 years ago, you could still technically unplug. You can't anymore.
Nope.
It's not even realistically possible. There's virtually no way for you to go off the grid.
You'll have to literally go somewhere.
I mean, and even then,
deliberately leave the grid.
Yeah.
There's a plane ticket. There's a toll booth you went through.
I was just say your license plate's gonna be tracked through cameras.
Even if you steal a car, there's still.
Well, they'll know that you went into this void of nothingness.
And
he last appeared here, and then over here, and somewhere in the Great Plains, he is there exists.
I mean, you would have to steal a car, wear a disguise, drive someplace where you don't go through any checkpoints, and then end up at a place where you can live, but you're not on the deed.
You're eventually going to have to go by foot and live in a hut in the woods.
Yes, that you built yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, that would be it. And then
you could teleport a couple times.
It's always my favorite thought experiment. Is the teleportation experiment. You know what I mean? You don't know what to ask, right?
No.
All right. So this always bugged me. This always bugged the pants off of me with Star Trek. All right. So whenever they beamed, right? Scotty beamed me up. That type of business, right? They would dematerialize, rematerialize. But they didn't move the atoms. That would be ridiculous, right? They broke down your molecular structure, scanned it, and then rebuilt you in the exact state somewhere else. So every time you got beamed, they murdered you and cloned you at the same time. It's a murder-clone suicide pact. Every single time you get beamed, And ethically, that bugged the crap out of me since I was a kid.
I mean, that's immense.
So were you ever really actually the same person?
You're not.
No, you're a clone.
You're a clone. And the other version of you, dead. Not just dead, totally murdered in the best murder way. Demolecularized.
Yeah.
Yep. Like that's ultimate murder. Like
To demonize.
Like it's the epitome of self-loathing. Like you're not even just gonna, like,
I couldn't even repeat the word.
I'm amazed I got it out right after 2 of these.
The funny thing is, I know what you said, but I can't even repeat it.
I made it up. It's not a real word.
Molecular.
It's fake stuff.
Molecular.
Right.
Say cinnamon.
Say it again.
Say it. Say it, Frenchie.
Cinnamon.
Say chowder. All right, sorry, we've broken the crap out of this agenda.
So we're coming. We got like 10 minutes left.
All right, I do have a couple of things I did want to bring up here. Just I apologize for bringing us back on target. I know this is the best part of this thing, but we did not talk about 2 things that I really want to talk about. And obviously, we can get into IBM Watson winning Jeopardy, and we can get into sex bots and all that other stuff. But and I know that's what you want to talk about.
That's what I've been waiting for this whole time.
You giggle every time I say it. That's what cracks me up. But I want to talk about, first, Asimov's laws. I don't think you can bring up AI without bringing up Asimov's laws. And also, I really want to talk about Boston Dynamics.
Okay. Yeah.
Because my thing with AI is always looked at as a digital platform. And it is. I mean, it's a way of getting, it's not actually machines thinking. It is software that is, is growing. But Boston Dynamics is so cool. And they are building the machines that eventually we can apply true AI to.
Yep.
And it's going to be the closest thing to robotic entities on this world that think for themselves. I think they'll be first.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you watch the videos. I watch the videos. Like, for anybody that doesn't watch them, you want to tell them what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So Boston Dynamics it's a robotics company who has come to the point where they've essentially developed self-sustaining robots. Is that a way to put it?
They're not self-sustaining.
Maybe not
they still need to be
but
plugged in, charged, and maintained by people.
Independent of...
They are autonomous.
Autonomous, that's the word. There it is. That are very almost human-like in their motions, right? It doesn't look like a robot, somebody doing the robot dance. It looks like a human movements, right? Fine motor, gross motor skills.
Have you seen the video, the interview?
No, I don't think so.
think it was a Boston Dynamics. I think it was a Japanese company, I believe. But they built a robot that gave an interview to an interviewer.
Oh,
and it was a woman, and it was freaky.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that one. I'll find that one though.
Look it up. It was answering questions, and it was making jokes. It's like, what are your ambitions? And she's like, to destroy humanity. And it's like, it's terrifying. Why are you doing this? Like, don't have it say the truth. Like, make it lie to me. But I don't know. I think that stuff, the robotics stuff, I think is the epitome of this. I mean, obviously we've had computers for a while, and they've gotten pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. And we've all seen the examples of computers that can do some limited level of thinking. But the robotics side always seemed a little stagnant for a long time. And all of a sudden in the last 5 years, it seems like it's kind of taken off.
It's kicking up.
And I think it's awesome. I think it's so cool. Maybe between the EV, the automatic, or not the EV, the autonomous cars, and the robots, and the robotic dogs, and, the sex bots. He giggled. But no, I mean, I think what they're doing is Boston Dynamics actually in Boston?
I've never looked up and
I haven't either.
tried to find out.
Do you know?
I really don't know.
I feel like that's giving Boston too much credit. I don't know. For some reason, it bugs me if they're in Boston.
The guy's last name could be Boston.
Maybe it is. Maybe it's the band Boston started the company.
Yeah, maybe they did. Maybe they funded it.
It's a spin-off from MIT.
Maybe it was,
so it is.
So they're in Waltham, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was just gonna say maybe it was Boss Ton.
I don't understand that reference.
Yeah.
Dude's name was Boss Ton. Boston.
Moving on.
There's not much artificial intelligence here.
No, there's no type of intelligence at this table.
I resent these accusations.
No, but I do get bugged by the fake Boston Dynamics videos, and I told you this earlier. But
Yeah.
if any of you see them out there, if you see a robot with a gun on a range shooting stuff and fighting with people, that's not real. Stop pretending it is, and stop forwarding it for the love of God on Facebook. It's not a real thing, and talking about how crazy these things have gotten. But the real Boston Dynamics robots are just awesome sauce. Like they're very cool.
So they're if I'm not mistaken, they're doing testing where they're like we talked earlier about can AI develop like human instinct.
Mm-hmm.
So if they doing experiments or tests where they're hooking people up and they're monitoring and recording brain waves and teaching AI through, like if somebody sits in a chair, those thought processes that are happening while they're hooked up, tapped in, whatever, wires all over, picking up all their senses and thoughts. And
They do try doing that, but as my best friend in the world, his name is Brian. He is a PhD in neuropharmacology. So this guy knows a lot about the brain. And in his words, as a brain expert, we don't know crap about the brain. Yeah, he's like, we don't know anything. He's like, we half of it we've made up. He goes, the other half we don't even pretend we made up. He's like, we barely know anything. He said, anybody who tells you this, like we only use 10% of our brain, they don't know what they have no idea what they're talking about. He's like, we don't even know what most of the brain does.
It's like the black hole of the human body.
Yeah, he says we've made a lot of progress in the last decade or so. He goes, but there's so much we don't know about the brain. And I don't think, from what I've read, I don't think it is possible to replicate the human brain in a robot. It's entirely too biochemical. Like the way we think and the way we program are so incongruous. They don't match up.
I say just our lack of understanding would make it near impossible. I would think.
Well, and we program computers and AIs the way we think we should think.
Right.
Like in a very linear fashion where memory is a rock solid thing and A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, and that's how we program. But that's not how our brain works. I mean, if you talk to anybody who's an expert in memory or anybody that does anything with a police force that works with witnesses, human memory does not work like snapshots. That is not at all how it operates. And so right there's a fundamental difference in the way the matrix of our brain works and the way the matrix of an AI's brain would work. Mm-hmm. They're not the same thing. And I don't
that's what brings me back to human instinct. Will artificial intelligence ever be able to have instinct? I don't really think it will. I think in the end, if there's a war between AI and humans, I think humans win.
Why do I get this feeling you want there to be a war?
Yeah, he's been talking a lot
about it. He's really
it.
pushing this war.
Like he's gearing up right now.
How many guns do you have?
I don't need guns. I know people with guns, and they don't really know how to use them.
Sorry, that wasn't where my brain went. When he said I don't need guns, I got a mental image of Jimmy running, no clothes on, whole body painted camouflage, through a factory floor with a knife.
That's exactly what I was picturing.
Stabbing robots.
Be dumping rust chemical on that.
And you know what? I'd take Jimmy.
I would Davy Crockett bladder,
What?
Spray some acid on those bots and just melt them.
He's got a plan. See, he's giving this thought.
Yeah.
He's all over.
They're not going to expect that. They're going to expect me to come at them with all kinds of...
We just talked about how they know every purchase you're going to make for the next 6 months, and they don't know that you're planning acid out of a Davy Crockett bladder.
As soon as I stop using the computer, they're not going to know anything. They'll be lost.
They're up in your business, buddy.
Oh my God, Jimmy's not searching anymore.
No, they're aware of it.
What's he up to? Holy crap. He's going to come up behind us.
On that note, I think we've said everything we have to say about this topic. Tyler, thank you. Jimmy, thank you, brother. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you gleaned something useful out of this hodgepodge of ridiculousness. And we will see you next week when we talk about Windows 11.
Windows 11.
Which should be a good one.
Wow.
So, thanks, everybody.
Humans.
The Broken Agenda Podcast. Sponsored by Laughing Rock Technology.